Jim, absolutely delighted to have you on this episode of the Audit Opinion. Your experience is second to none in the market in terms of quality and your focus on the audit profession for such a long period of time. So, really, really interested in today's conversation, and we are going to focus on that quality aspect. There's so much going on in the space of technology, innovation, AI. That I don't want us to lose sight of the quality aspect here, an intrinsic part of what any audit firm, accounting firm is really focused on. So let's kick things off with a question around how you view technology adoption impacting audit quality in the real world. We've all seen a lot of the hype, the theory, the academic research, but how do you view the adoption of technology and its impact on audit quality?
Well, when you think about the auditing profession and you think about firms, audit quality is really what drives most firms' total brand, right? Clearly, the partners in a firm, whether large or small, and their reputation for client service has an effect on how people view firms. But audit quality is really the fundamental foundation that firm-wide reputation is built upon. And over the 100 years the profession has been doing and performing audits, striving for improved audit quality has always been an objective. And in the last 5 to 10 years or so, the focus on innovation, the adoption of technology, and how that can improve firm operations has really given an opportunity for that type of adoption and focus to not only improve operations and maybe profitability, but audit quality as well. And so as firms think about, do I want to go into this? Everybody's got a drawer full of audit programs. Most of them are electronic at least now. They're not going to a big wall of drawers and pulling out the cache module when they need to. But the concept is the same, right? Simply because you're using a computer to do your audit doesn't mean that you've adopted technology and innovation into the process. And looking at that as an opportunity to not only improve the profitability and the operations and the success of the firm, but improving audit quality really has to go hand in hand.
You make a great point there, and I think one of the myths I've heard over the years is almost this perception that audit quality is the antithesis, the opposite of efficiency and profitability, and that the only way to make something better quality is to put more hours on the clock, to dig deeper, etc. So is that something where you've seen in your experience the ability to actually use audit quality as a differentiator?
Well, I think that, technology fundamentally affects every aspect of a firm's operations. Audit quality affects every aspect of a firm's operations, from attracting and retaining new clients to onboarding those clients to preparing those clients for audit, executing the audit, and then delivering additional value to the clients through that technology is critically important to the overall aspect of firm success. And if you think about technology and innovation in a silo where you just say, I'm going to adopt some new audit technology to make my testing of revenue more efficient, you miss all the opportunities that connects that information to other aspects of your relationship with the client, to their perception of the value that they receive from the audit, as well as your employee satisfaction around executing and performing the audit. So I do think that a base of I want to improve the quality of my audit is a great position to start from. But if that's your only objective from the firm perspective, I think that you're going to uh, perceive less benefit than you have the opportunity to to realize.
I think there's a lot for firms to go after there, and the ones that I see doing it well are thinking more strategically about, okay, what does this mean for our proposition, our pricing, our talent career journey, if you like. And the ones who are maybe missing a trick there are focused a little bit too narrowly on how they're approaching this.
I think that the acceptance and adoption of the technology across firms is, very much similar to any other adoption that firms experience. We used to joke um, about crossing the chasm, because you've got your early adopters, and then you've got your fast followers, and then you've got the group that um, adopts because they have to, and then you got your laggards, right?
Yeah.
And that laggard group is never going to um, experience the full benefits of the technology. But you've got 3/4 of your firm in those first three groups, and when you get those groups on board, and you start looking at how does this allow you to have different conversations with your client? How does it allow even your early, staff, the associates and the seniors, to better connect with what's going on in the business? The technology adoption really helps the people across the firm understand and have a different conversation with the client if they want to. Right. And so that's where firm leadership can actually accelerate and improve the acceptance of the technology by not focusing on, well, gee, what did it do to my sample size? Right. Or what did it do um, to my unreconciled items across, this balance sheet account? And, tell me three things that you learned from looking at this data. Right. Just such a simple question. People start looking at it differently. And as anybody who grew up in the profession learned, the vast majority of connections with your client occurred in unscripted, extemporaneous conversations that you had with the controller or the CFO or the CFO while you were in the physical presence of the client. And you bring something up, and then they mention, oh yeah, we got this new customer who has got some new terms with us. Like, oh, my staff noticed that. And it's amazing how much information that you can get by thinking about the information that you're using for audit quality first in building that relationship with the client. And you brought up pricing, and you brought up client satisfaction. I think that if we let technology move the audit work to become more commoditized because we're faster, and therefore we expect to be less expensive or less pricey, we're going to win the battle and lose the war around how do we continue to position the entire profession and the firm as, those words that we've heard forever, the trusted advisor to the client. And the focus on audit quality through innovation, through technology adoption, really can help us fulfill that expectation that most clients have, but they rarely tell you about it until they've decided to go somewhere else.
How much do you feel the audit product needs to evolve from what it traditionally has been to almost keep pace with the expectations of a modern client? And related to that point around commoditization, how much do you feel firms should be differentiating their way of doing the audit from other firms who are offering the same kind of service, but maybe in a different way?
There's several things in there, right? So first, let's talk about the purpose and the reason that audits occur in the first place, right? Um, clearly there are external drivers that move a company to engage a firm to do an audit, right? Um, if you know, if you've got a really cool technology product or consumer product, you can maybe go out and find new customers for that product. We found it very difficult over the years to go meet a new company and suggest, "Hey, I've got a good idea for you. You're not currently getting an audit. You should get an audit. You'll love it. It's a great experience." So, the market, as new firms are formed and more capital is exchanged and things grow, obviously that's what brings new new opportunities for clients. But the market is, for the most part, pretty fixed in terms of what's out there. And so firms, differentiate themselves on a number of ways, audit quality being one of them. But, the market is going to seek audits that helps solve and help address their needs, right? So compliance is clearly the number one need that they talk about when they express why are they getting an audit, because they have to. Could be regulatory, could be a financial commitment, could be a shareholder commitment. Whatever that commitment is, they got it. And when audits were performed for the last 100 years, right? Just look at the audit opinions, right? In the United States, financial statements present fairly. In a lot of the European and in the UK, it presents as true and fair, right? Those are focused on, are the financial statements correct? And over the last 10 to 15 years, as electronic accounting systems have come into use by 100% of entities, right? The chances of a company making a simple mistake that becomes to be material really has declined. I mean, it's hard to fat finger something today, put the wrong number in, and have that not be caught through the electronic means that companies are already using. So while the end product is still the same, the auditor's focus has really changed over the last decade to be focused on making sure that the financial statements weren't intentionally misstated or misstated through a decision that was wrong in the first place. And what I mean by that is, let's just talk about auditing revenue, right? I always used to coach people that auditing revenue, notwithstanding the very complicated revenue recognition standards in the accounting principles, revenue is really just about how much and when. Those are the only two questions you really need to answer. And there's ways that companies go about that. And companies can make an honest mistake in both of those, right? The how much and the when. Because contracts can be complicated and relationships with customers can be complicated. But auditors focus on that. And when you introduce automation and innovation and other technology into the audit, it gives you new ways of looking at those transactions to understand whether or not the how much and the when may have been misjudged by the client. But that information also gives you a lot of opportunities to determine whether or not the client may have done that intentionally. And I don't think that even if we had only one tool that the entire profession was using, that people would look at that second risk, that management was intentionally misstating their information, the same way. Because there are so many other external drivers to what may or may not cause that, that I think that experience that you gain over your years in the profession give you different ways of looking at it. So I think the fun that you talked about, in auditing and the enjoyment of doing it a different way, I think each audit within the same firm is done a different way because no two clients are the same. And because of that, it will constantly bring that challenge, that excitement, that differentiation that accountants and successful auditors really thrive on. Because I know that growing up as a CPA and having all my relatives have no idea what it is that I did, just presuming that I did taxes, you know, is something that I never found boring because I was at 6 to 20 different clients every year, depending on the size. And then even if I went back to those same clients year after year, their circumstance was different every time. So the opportunity to bring new perspectives into the audit process, leveraged from the automation and the innovation, is clearly something that I think makes the profession as exciting as it was when I entered it.
And I think that's as we focus on the career prospects. I read things that are maybe a little bit disappointing around the automation agenda of what is the impact going to be on auditors, accountants, CPAs going forward. And a lot of this technology and automation is naturally more inclined to automate the work that is more routine, more standardized, which lends itself to more junior work typically. So, how do you see the role of auditors evolving, Jim, as we see greater use of technology and as we see automation really take more of a hold?
Pipeline into the profession is one of the things that I think every national audit body is looking at, right? How do we continue to bring people into the profession? How do we make the profession relevant and exciting? And, I can speak best from the United States perspective. In, 20 or so years ago, we moved, maybe 25, from the requiring a bachelor's degree to requiring 150 hours and trying to elevate the quality of the people that were entering the profession. And I don't think that decision and that track that the profession took was done in a way that was intentionally bad, right? The purpose was appropriate in that if we get people more educational experience at problem solving and thinking, they'll be better auditors and better advisors to their client. And that's experience, right? It has an educational experience, but it's experience. And that is one of the things that makes for good CPAs, good chartered accountants, good auditors. But it had a lot of unintended consequences, right? It changed the attractiveness of the profession from a time commitment perspective, from a cost of attending university and becoming qualified compared to other professions. And so, California has just recently passed legislation to move it back to a bachelor's degree to 120 hours. The AICPA and its Pathways program has started to introduce different elements of, do you want to be on the technology track, the taxation track? So the environment is adjusting to what's going on at kind of the macro perspective of the pipeline. But what I do think is is really important there is that the profession itself and the firms also have to adapt because simply because I can take clients' data and send it to my offshore center, or I can give my client a set of data scripts and they can download everything, doesn't give me the experience that I need to become a better problem solver and better at my professional skepticism about what could have gone wrong here or what might not make sense. And I think that, if firms simply believe that they can, turn the pyramid into a diamond and fill out the two triangles on the right with outsourced, or consultants or technology, we're going to still have a difficult time having very experienced audit teams that understand what's going wrong. And I know that firms of all sizes are really focused on that. And, how can we do it? But, I wish I had the one suggestion that would solve the problem. But junior auditors and people out of school and university, they're smart. They definitely understand the standards and the technology, but they also need real life experience. That's why I hear professors say, "Do you have cases? Do you have cases that we can apply?" Because they're trying to give them that experience. But like any simulation, nothing replaces the real thing. I have a really good friend of mine that's a airline pilot, and he was talking about their pilot training, and that when they go through their routine simulation pilot training, they put them through different situations that have actually occurred in flight. Sometimes with good outcomes, sometimes with unfortunate outcomes, and try to understand how would that pilot react in that situation. And, I've had the benefit of sitting in an airline simulator before and seeing it, and it feels really like a plane and everything else. But the pilot told me something that was really interesting. He said, "Yeah, I mean, we get there, but I will tell you it's different because when you're sitting in the simulator, you don't have 200 lives sitting behind you that, are dependent on you. And so even though you might react really well in the simulator, you don't know how you're going to react until it actually happens to you. Unfortunately, for nearly all pilots, that situation doesn't ever happen. But you have the situation, you don't know what you're going to do. And I think maybe on a little bit less life threatening um, perspective, but auditors are the same way. Until you see it in the client situation and understand even just the simple meetings that you're having with the clients and what you're getting from them, that in the field with an audit experience is important. And I really do hope that the profession continues to invest in that time and understands that it is critically necessary to deliver long-term audit quality, because transforming data, spitting out data, and giving a percentage that says, I've got 98% confidence that these numbers are right. Doesn't take a CPA firm to do that. There's some large cloud providers and software companies that can do that, but I don't think they can do the same thing that the auditors can when they start to interact with all the other dynamics that go on. And that's the key part, right? How do we continue to train those people to be better at what they do, from the entry level person all the way through the partner? Simply because I was a partner and around for 25 years as a partner doesn't mean that I wasn't learning every day.
This is putting more pressure on high level governance structures. So, mention system of quality management or quality management systems, a big driver across the world for audit firms of late. And now with this generative AI shift, we've got broader technology, broader use of tools and resources. How do you think firms should be thinking about governance structures and managing the risks that this wave of innovation naturally brings, Jim?
Well, when you think about the adoption of generative AI and some of the tools, and does that change the company's risk profile, or the audit firm's risk profile? I think from the quality side of the the world, um, it is absolutely necessary to undertake the understanding of what tools are being used and what's the intended purpose of those tools, and then really understanding how they are being used. I mean, the first two questions might imply a how, but I think that, the quality process needs to look into the actual execution and use of the tools to validate that the purpose and the intent of the tool is actually occurring as planned. That's a little bit more on the operational execution of the quality system. From the governance side of it, right? Usually it's a different group of people that are thinking about it. But in some of the smaller firms, you don't have the luxury of being able to have, you know, a set of non-involved partners or others or outsiders sit on this board. And so you really have to think about from the governance perspective, what are those hands-on reviews telling me? And when am I willing to call the question, or when am I willing to say, I'm not certain that we haven't introduced additional risk into the firm? Because it's kind of it's a creeping adoption and a creeping comfort level that you get here, right? Well, we've gone 6 months, we've gone a year, we don't seem to have any major problems. It must be doing fine. If the governance body is not asking for, what new things are occurring, what evolution have the tools undertaken, and what are the users saying about this tool, they need that input to be able to understand whether or not the risk that's being accepted at the firm truly is something that they want to accept. Right. So there's intentional acceptance and there's unintentional acceptance. And I really think that with a lot of the AI that's out there, the governance boards are not hearing potential issues and therefore are acquiescing to the acceptance of that.
Hmm. Interesting. There's a lot to unpack there in terms of how firms maybe need to think a little bit differently. Maybe firms that have had a, should we say, more relaxed governance approach to innovation and technology in the past might need to add a little bit more formalization to that. Is that an IT role? Is that an audit leadership role? There's a lot of things for firms to be thinking about as they really try and dial up here the level of technology use. And I think the quality management standards are somewhat of a good framework and a basis to start thinking about some of that for the firms that are a little bit maybe less mature in their historical approach to this particular area.
Well, the governance process is, if even large firms, but particularly mid-sized and smaller firms, if they think that they can find one person who understands auditing and IT and AI, I mean, that's a tall order. There aren't that many people that really understand all those pieces. What is probably more important on any governing board is people who will ask hard questions and say something like, I don't understand that. Go further. Tell me more, right? Explain more. Or I haven't quite, comprehended all of that. Can you explain it more and be able to ask those questions? The people who are responsible for AI governance and overall firm governance really need to ask those hard questions. And it's hard for them too, because nobody wants to say that they don't understand something. I mean, that's a little bit humbling, to have to say in a large group where you're on this board because of your experience and your capability, and to say, I don't understand that. Can you explain more? It is hard. So if I was sitting on, a quality board or a governance group, I would continue to encourage my fellow participants that, it's okay to ask those questions, because if we don't, we're never going to get to truly identify and understand what the risks are that we're accepting here. Um, that's a big skill to have, but an important one.
I'm interested in getting your thoughts on the cultural impact of some of this this evolution, and there's probably two sides to this coin. Do you feel, Jim, or how do you feel the culture of an accounting firm may need to change or adjust to be more conducive to taking on more technology, taking on more innovation. And on the flip side of that, assuming that the firm does, are there any cultural implications that you've seen in terms of how people and the broader business are impacted by some of these changes?
Well, automation and innovation and the adoption thereof, firms have to be really clear about why they are doing it and be open with it, because not only does it, directly affect audit quality, but it affects how the firm is going to execute its overall go-to-market strategy, its interactions and its relationship with its clients, the client satisfaction metric. It affects the personnel workforce morale and how they feel about their jobs. So any technology undertaking has to consider those aspects, or it has got a significantly more challenging pathway to success. I don't know who said it the first time, but I think we've all at some point heard the term culture eats strategy for lunch. Um, if you could have the best tool in the world, but if you haven't addressed how your employees view it, how your clients are going to view it, it will become very difficult to get that involved. And what I found in the multiple technology applications that I've been involved in, we changed our audit software completely while I was, the chief auditor at Grant Thornton. Went from one method to another method, and then used it on from 0% of our audits to 100% of the audits. And people talk about, oh, change management and the messaging and the importance in bringing them on board. And that is all really important. But, change management is a weird mumbo jumbo science of everything. I just like to break it down really quick, right? If I were to ask any of my employees or any of my staff, what are we getting out of this and why are we doing it? If they can't answer that question, then we haven't done a good enough job of helping them understand what it's there. We can put up posters with all the benefits and little images. It's great. How's it going to affect them on a day to day basis? And remember, they're worried about how much time they're spending on it, their career project path and trajectory, and how to be successful. And then secondly, how are our managers and partners going to talk to our clients about this technology? And what's our client's perspective it's going to be? And more technology applications fail and don't get adopted to the full extent because the engagement team has to deliver the client's audit by a certain deadline and a certain date. And they're concerned that anything new is going to disrupt that. And the last thing that an audit partner wants is a disruption in the audit service that could give, any client the the idea to look for another firm. Now, I've counseled many audit partners over the years that one technology item or one thing, clients don't leave for one reason or one event. I mean, unless it's catastrophic, and those um, but all those little things really gets to how much you talk to the client, how much you interact with the client, and how open you are with them about the tool. And clients adopt new tools all the time as well. They understand the challenges of new tools and get set back. I had one CFO tell me one day, yeah, our ERP implementation brought our companies to its knees. They couldn't process anything on the day that they went live. So things happen and people get that. And so if you want to be successful in a technology rollout, the understanding the the subcomponents of your culture and how that technology is going to affect each of those subcomponents of the culture is really important. And then at the macro level or over at the top, if the tool itself is going to transform the organization and everything is dependent on this tool, you forget that regardless of how much innovation and technology we put in place, it's still a people business. And that is setting up the tool to accomplish too much. It's the same risk that that people have when they think that the tool or a policy is going to solve conflict or challenge along the engagement path. Pointing to a clause in the engagement letter doesn't solve an overrun. Fine, put in my engagement letter that there might be overruns. If I didn't explain to the client what, why, and how we're going to solve it, that's going to be a difficult change order conversation. Same thing with technology implementation. It isn't just the messaging; it's getting down to understanding it at the people level.
Jim, this has been a fantastic conversation. You've shared so many nuggets and words of wisdom from your fantastic career. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on during the conversation that you'd like to share with other audit leaders who are trying to go after the opportunity that technology and automation presents?
Well, we spent a lot of time, with the backdrop of technology and automation, um, improving audit quality. And I think we kind of implied the financial statement audit as the key element there. But there is an entire world of attestation, around controls, around non-financial data, around sustainability information, give or take the political influences that are going on with sustainability reporting this day. Trustworthy information is always valuable. And that's what auditors do is they bring trust and credibility to information, whether it's the financial statements, the controls, or that non-financial data. There are tools and capabilities around all of the areas of attestation that can be beneficial. And there are opportunities uh, for attestation beyond the financial statements because all of our clients' value chains have extended these days. Everybody's got business partners that they're doing business with, and how you interact and how you exchange information, all of that should be looked at as is there a need or a benefit from creating more reliability in that. And when you do that, technology can play a big role in not just the financial statement audit, but in providing attestation services and helping our clients meet their doubts and concerns around information and moving that towards more confidence.
I agree. There's a world of opportunity out there for CPA firms, Jim, and if we can leverage that aspect of trust that inherently is what underpins the majority of what a CPA firm offers, whether it's audit, broader attestation, or if you think tax and advisory, there is a growing need, if anything, generative AI and some of the changes that are happening here place a even greater reliance on objective trust from a reliable third party. So I think there's exciting opportunities ahead. I'm glad we've been able to touch on some of those in today's conversation. And as we've thought about how technology, innovation, automation, really with a lens of quality, I'm delighted that we've closed on that point around trust and what the future of the profession looks like. So, Jim, thank you very much for the expertise and the insights that you shared here in today's conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you very much for what you've shared.